So we got another huge episode for you today. If you didn't watch yesterday's episode, I kind of walked through what happened in detail with the Robinhood and GameStop, the AMC and GameStop craziness that happened, and just what was going on. So anyway, long story short, today the crap hit the fan. Not for everybody, but for Robinhood. And they're getting murdered. So what happened is, I told you yesterday that I think it was Charles Schwab, and it wasn't E-Trade, Charles Schwab and somebody else basically stopped allowing retail investors to trade AMC and GameStop. Well, then E-Trade jumped in, and then this morning Robinhood jumped in, which, let me just kind of walk you through why that's really stupid. Is Robinhood is named after the guy who stole from the rich and gave to the poor. And so for the first time in history, we covered this yesterday, you have a situation where the poor got together and stuck it to the rich. So where these rich hedge fund guys, I mean, multi-millionaire, billionaire, whatever, hedge fund guys, were shorting companies. Let's be honest. They're shorting companies and basically trying to make money while putting them out of business. I worked for a publicly traded company, and we had a number of, people always trying to short us, and it was just trying to hurt the company to make themselves money. I mean, they're basically viruses, for lack of a better term. I mean, that's what a virus is. It only survives by hurting the host. Now, you don't want to kill the host, but you want to hurt the host. And so anyway, that's what they are. And so these guys got on Reddit and Discord and basically started coordinating and saying, hey, we want to start taking these guys down because they're shorting way too much. Yesterday we talked about it was either GameStop or AMC. They shorted 140% of the open float, which basically means if you have 5 million shares, 4 million are bought, and 100 million are sitting there waiting to be bought, they shorted 140% of them. I mean, more than was even available. And so these guys got together, saw what was happening, and realized these guys are in a tough position. They're going to get screwed. And if we band together, then we can stick it to them. And we can actually make a ton of money. And we can force them out of their short. And it's called a short squeeze. And the idea is if you buy enough calls, then it drives the price up. It scares the person doing it. But more than anything, the person offering them a short needs to be paid money to basically keep the short going because they're afraid they're going to get stiffed and they're not going to get paid in the end. And so it's like playing poker where the ante keeps going up and up and up. If you want to stay in the game, you got to keep, seeing somebody and raising them, or seeing them or staying in the game. Otherwise, you got to fold. And so yesterday they folded, right? And AMC, I don't know, I haven't been following GameStop, but AMC had been going up pretty nicely for the last couple of weeks, and I think that's what happened, and it hit a critical mass. So then Robinhood decides, well, who are we going to stick? We're going to sit here and tell people they can sell AMC and GameStop, but they can't buy it. So let's do a little economics 101. What do you think happens to the price of a stock when you can't buy it, but you can only sell it? I'll put it another way. What do you think happens to a stock when the only transactions that happened are selling that transaction? Well, demand goes down, price goes down. Pretty simple as that. So Robinhood just got murdered for this today. And so I just want to share something with you real quick. I was watching Charles Payne this morning on Fox Business, and I love this guy now. I mean, not that I didn't love the guy before, but at least you know where he stands. So I want to share you a little bit of what he talked about today. So we'll put this on video.
Well, it's another wild day in the stock market and a week that could go down in history for a number of reasons. The retail investor revolution began as independent thinking. It started last year when the market was in the throes of that free fall and individual investors stepped in. They were adhering to the age-old adage, right? You buy low. But Wall Street balked because, well, the experts had not called the bottom at that time.
And guess what we're doing? This is when I started. Sorry, guys. This is when I started the video. You buy low. You take all the risk out of the market, and, really, there's no place to go but up. So when he's talking about retail investors starting last year, that's you and me he's talking about. So, all right, let's keep going.
Wall Street did not ring a bell. Just, collective heads serve in the investing world amongst individuals rang at the same time. And they just kind of said, you know what? We took massive losses in 2009 and in 2001. This time we are buying the dip.
All right. So basically what he says here, guys, is he says, you screwed us twice. And we lost houses and 401ks and careers and marriages and, who knows, maybe went in and became, alcohol addicts, could be anything. And it's like, enough is enough. We're sticking our heel in the ground and we're not making that mistake again. And we're going to make our money back. So think Trading Places when Eddie Murphy's character, Richmond Valentine, was it? I think Richard or Richmond Valentine, basically gets stuck. And then you look at Dan Aykroyd's character and he basically gets thrown to the wolves. He's homeless. He's eating fish out of his fur. And they basically come up with this plan and we're like, we're going to stick it to the Duke brothers. So that's what he's talking about here.
So fast forward to today, and the chasm between those same investors and Wall Street has taken a turn for the worse. Wall Street now changing the rules of the game. In effect, they have gone to war with the very clients they lured with the promise of a democratized system.
He's being very subtle. He's talking about Robinhood, guys. And when he says he's changing the rules, think of it this way. Think of it as if you're the Patriots, right? You're this 10-time Super Bowl champ or whatever it is, and you're in the Super Bowl and you're winning 20-0, and it's in the third or fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, the NFL calls down and says, timeout, we're pausing the game. We're going to allow the other team's offense to be on the field for 3 drives, and we're not going to allow the defense on the field. And next thing you know, and this is without the time going off the clock, you're going to be down. The Patriots are now up 21-20. Instead of being down 20-20, 20-0, they're now up 21-20. That's literally what he's talking about. So let's keep going.
The long knives have come out, shutting down the investing revolution the elites could not control. The biggest disappointment comes from Robinhood, which enjoyed record signups yesterday, record volumes yesterday. Now their clients can only sell certain stocks.
All right, so what he's saying here, guys, real quick, is he's basically saying Robinhood had his biggest day yesterday, and so they're making money hand over fist yesterday. I mean, they're making money hand over fist. The volume's through the roof. Everything's through the roof. They're making hand over fist. And what do the next day? They stab the retail investor in the back. Now, can the hedge fund still trade AMC and short them and buy them? Sure, absolutely. Can Robinhood's customers, the ones that are supposed to steal from the rich and take from the rich and give to the poor? No, we're going to keep you from doing it. And in fact, what we're going to do is we're going to facilitate a price drop on the stocks that you bought on our platform. So we're going to make sure and ensure that you lose money. All right, here we go.
They can't buy them. This, by the way, they say that we continuously monitor the market and make changes when necessary. In light of recent volatility, we are restricting transactions for certain securities to positions closing only. That includes AMC, BlackBerry, Bed Bath & Beyond, Express, GameStop, Calls, Naked, and Nokia. We've also raised margin requirements for certain securities.
All right, so real quick, if they want to raise margin requirements for securities, by all means, if you look on Robinhood, there's certain margin requirements. There, if you have more volatility on a stock, then there's going to be more margin requirements. I have no problem with that. But to sit here and say, well, we're just not going to let you trade it, yeah, you're stabbing your customers in the back. And don't say it's because of volatility, because in March and April, when the volatility, if you remember the stock market was going up 2,000 points and down 2,000 points, I can tell you for a fact, being on Robinhood that day, they didn't do anything. So that's a big, fat lie. All right, here we go.
Now, if you can only sell stocks, then those stocks only go down. It's really heartbreaking, and I think it should be illegal to change the rules this dramatically, even if it's somewhere in the fine print. So what I do not get is if these stocks that all the experts keep saying are fated to fail, why did Wall Street have to panic? They didn't just, put a finger on the scale, folks. They removed it altogether. I think it's a terrible day for the establishment that has spent the entire week calling individual investors dumb money, and then they changed the rules in an attempt to assassinate those newfound freedoms of those so-called dumb money investors.
All right, so a couple things to point here. He says, number one, they removed the scale. I mean, he basically just said you came out and showed your hand that the game was never fair to begin with. And if anything, what you're doing is you're kind of signaling your own doom, right? I wrote on Twitter today that I said, congratulations, Robinhood. You just gave birth to your newest competitor, because there's going to be somebody out there who's going to say, you know what? We're going to start a Robinhood app. Not that hard to do, guys. But we're not going to be scheming and stab our customers in the back. The other thing you got to consider is this is a class war thing. So it's kind of like Titanic, where you have like the old money and you have those old people, and they hated Molly Brown because she was new money and they didn't want to be around her. If she came up, they got up and left. They didn't want anything to be around her. And so what you're looking at here is basically a point where you have to make a decision. Are you going to operate fairly, or are you going to side with one side? And they made their bed today.
By the way, this movement began during a period of turmoil. It's not going to end overnight. It's going to continue. For more on this short squeeze saga, I want to bring in Keith Fitzgerald, David Dietz, and Eddie Gabor. Guys, a lot to unpack here. Keith, I want to start with you. Overall, your thoughts on this saga, how these brokerage firms have deliberately destroyed their own investors by only allowing them to sell certain stocks. By the way, after luring them with free stocks and goodies and all these promises.
All right, so they're right there. Today, they had a class action lawsuit filed against Robinhood today. Now, I want you to listen again. I'm going to rewind it 15 seconds because that's what the button does. And I want you to listen. He just made the case. You induced people to invest in you, with you. You didn't really put the bar very high, which, right or wrong, it just is what it is. And you made it easy to trade. If you start a Robinhood account, it's easy to trade. You know, you can trade right away. If you don't have money in your account, if you make a deposit, they'll float you the money until it actually officially arrives. And they even give you free stock. And they're very open on the fact that they gamify the experience because they want you to be on the platform all the time. But I want you to listen to this again as he goes through point by point, and then watch the second guy right here. Watch his face, which I just absolutely love. All right, here we go.
They stabbed them in the back just when they needed them most. Saga, how these brokerage firms have deliberately destroyed their own investors by only allowing them to sell certain stocks. By the way, after luring them with free stocks and goodies and all these promises, they stabbed them in the back just when they needed them most.
Yeah, they did. I think it's a coward's move. It's disgusting. If they want to play the game all the way, let's play the game all the way. My orders were, in fact, rejected yesterday on GameStop, too. So I'm part of this. I'm madder than you know what. They made money at the expense of individual investors for years, billions. Regulators looked the other way. We were told that's how the system worked. And now that the table's reversed, the shoe's on the other foot, they're taking their toys out of the sandbox like a spoiled 5-year-old. I think it's absolutely disgusting what they're pulling today. So to me, I think good on the individual investors for doing this. I think there is one cautionary tale, though, Charles, and it's now that they've poked the hedge funds, they're going to fight back. And I wouldn't want to be within a country mile when that happens.
Eddie, your thoughts?
I agree with Keith. And look, I think what happened today is they just added fuel to the fire between this battle between retail investors and hedge funds. And I think they're underestimating the power of this movement. Look.
All right. So the first guy basically came out and said, listen, you poked the bear, he's going to come out and eat you. Maybe you shouldn't have done it because they're way stronger than you. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit. This guy says, no, are you kidding me? You stoked a revolution. So it's kind of like the British and the American colonists back in the day. It was like you can do all the things you're going to do to punish these colonists, but the more you try to punish them and the more you treat them poorly, the more they're going to have their will galvanized. And that's what we're seeing. So, all right.
These retail investors are not going away. If anything, I expect this to fuel that fire and for it to grow. And I expect them to jump right back in when they're able to trade. So I don't understand.
All right. So one quick thing, we're going to talk about this a little bit later. Robinhood actually capitulated a little bit, and they said, well, we're going to open up limited trading of these stocks starting tomorrow. So that's a little bit, this is before that actually happened, but he was actually dead on the money when he says this. So the guy knows what he's talking about, apparently.
Understand why we are not welcoming these new investors into the market. This is what we want them doing, thinking like entrepreneurs. Exactly. There's going to be winners and losers. That's capitalism. So I don't know what the problem is. And at the end, I hope the retailers win.
You know, guys, think about this. 20 years ago, GE, the most valuable company in the world, in the entire world, every investor professional, every talking head in financial media said you must own this stock in your 401k, around 50 bucks. It's languishing around $12 now. If you're looking out for the little guy, let him and her go out there and do this. Hey, David, I want to go to you, but first, I got to give you props, my man, because I was doing these segments about short squeezes for 2 or 3 weeks, long before anybody was talking about it. I was asking a lot of guests for their thoughts. Most of my guests actually didn't have a short squeeze candidate. You said AMC. It is a bona fide grand slam. So I just want your thoughts on what's happening right now, this pullback, and then to Eddie's point, maybe these investors reload anyway.
Well, so it's a really interesting situation. Certainly, I think it's a very valid tool in the investor toolbox to look for those most shorted stocks. Why? Because eventually those short sellers have to buy it back. That could be some tool. And of course, with all the short selling.
So pardon this guy's microphone. For whatever reason, he's going to sound muffled, but it's not going to last very long. So just put up with it for a sec, and he'll be back to normal in a sec.
Often the price is below intrinsic value. So I've always looked at that as a way, as a screen. It's not the only way to buy stock, and that's why we own AMC and done very well with that.
Oh,
Having
okay.
said,
No, you were coming in muffled at first. You sound like a drunk Muppet, but now I got you.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to push back on my fellow esteemed panelists insofar as, I mean, unfortunately, it's not truly a free market. You've got these Massachusetts regulators who are already picking a fight with Robinhood and so forth.
All right. So the background on that, if you guys aren't aware, is this Massachusetts Attorney General filed basically a consumer complaint, I don't know, it was a month or two ago or whatever, with Robinhood, maybe a little bit longer, just alleging that they're basically serving drunks shots and shots of whiskey and then, giving them keys to their car and walking them to their car to drive home. That's basically what they're saying. And so I think what he's alluding to here is they're more concerned about losing that lawsuit than serving their base, which is like, in the end, you have to decide, like, what's your business model? What are you trying to do? How are you trying to appeal to your customers? How are you trying to attract clients? And so he's alluding to that a little bit, but it's a little bit short-sighted on that. It's a state. I mean, states file lawsuits against companies all the time. My old company had the same thing happen. But anyway, let's keep going.
So forth. And you got all these lawyers who are just ready to come to the assistance of these people that said, no one told me that GameStop was too expensive. Why did my broker take my order? It's a little bit like a bar. Yeah. I know you're over 21, you've had 10 drinks, but if the bartender says that's enough for you, I have to back them up there.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's talk about the broader market then for a moment, guys, because you know what?
All right, so we're gonna stop right there. All right, so with that being said, they're getting raked across the fire. I mean, they basically, it's on every show today. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that came out today. So, turns out that something that I don't think anything ever could have happened before. You actually get AOC and Ted Cruz actually are agreeing. So, AOC put out a tweet that said, put it right here. We need to know more about Robinhood's decision to block retail investors from purchasing stock while hedge funds are freely able to trade the stock as they see fit. And as a member of the Financial Services Committee, I support a hearing if necessary. So she's just calling it out. It's one of the very few times I actually agree with AOC. Well, Ted Cruz said the same thing. And his response, let's see, where is his response? Do we have that here? Yeah, Ted Cruz basically, yeah, here it is, right here. So Ted Cruz said, happy to work with almost, oh, no, that was the one. We'll talk about that in a sec. And, yeah, he just basically said, fully agree. And then, of course, that's what happens when you get somebody who is an adult in the room, whether you like him politically or not. I mean, Ted Cruz is an adult in the room. And then you get AOC, who is a 4-year-old sometimes. And she had an opportunity to really earn some points and probably, she wants to run for Senate in a couple of years. She has a chance to really win over some middle of the road voters. So what does she say? We'll come back to that. What does she say on this? She basically says, happy to work. No, we'll do it on this one. Yeah, she says, I'm happy to work with Republicans on this issue, but there's common ground. You almost had me murdered 3 weeks ago, so you can sit this one out. Happy to work with any GOP that aren't trying to get me killed. In the meantime, if you want to help, you can resign. Nice, you can't really have a conversation with a 4-year-old at that point. So with that being said, another adult in the room, Elon Musk jumped in. Very, very concise tweet, very pithy tweet. He just put absolutely. So Robinhood's in a corner. They stabbed their constituency in the back, and they cost them a lot of money. So if you think that one class action lawsuit's the only one, they're going to be facing a lot of them. But more than anything, they're facing a lot of reputational risk. I mean, they built their whole thing about we're going to help the little guy succeed in the stock market, when basically only the axe caps from billions are the ones able to make money. And then when it finally gets to a point, like we talked about yesterday, where it's the one time in all of stock market history where the little guy gathered together, coordinated together, and made, kind of made plans, rose up, and absolutely just destroyed these hedge funds. And not just to make money, but as a warning shot to these hedge funds that you can't do that anymore. It's like anti-corruption police in a sense. Robinhood sides with the billionaires. Unbelievable, total head-shaking move. So we talked about yesterday, or talked about how Robinhood today said they're going to open things up tomorrow in a limited capacity. Well, look what happened to the price. Went down 56%. And then after hours when they made that announcement, just on that announcement alone, it went up 25%. So this stock's going up tomorrow. And I'll tell you what, the minute that they open this up to buying, I think you're going to see a lot of people buy this. And I actually sold half of my portfolio, and we'll talk about a little bit of that and kind of what we did about that in a second. So let's go ahead and talk about, I guess we can just go right to that. So I went ahead and filled in 2 orders. So one, Texas Hospitality came in at 190 and immediately dropped down to 178. So I was like, yes. Or immediately it got up to 190 and then immediately dropped to 178. It's currently at 172 right now. So that was like a perfectly placed sell price on that. So that's kind of cool. Freed up a little bit of money. And then AMC, I basically had a market order come in, and if we look at AMC right here, it started about 13. Mine sold, I don't know, somewhere around right here. Got back up to 1640 and then dropped back down and went all the way down to 652. And is now sitting at 1089 right now. So so that went through, basically cleared 10 grand on that, and dropped my margin from 29,000 to almost 30,000 to 20,000. And so we have free money to play with now. So one of the things I decided to do is I decided to look at some stocks, and there's a few stocks that I decided to look at. So we looked at the movement for one day, and obviously AMC is going to be the lowest one, obviously, just because of everything that happened. And then I wanted to look at the ones that dropped the most, just to give us an opportunity to buy the dip as much as possible. So PBF's an oil stock. I think there's some, I'm not as comfortable yet. We'll see what happens. Seeing how Biden's just trying to kill all the oil jobs. He's trying to put the industry out of business, which is crazy because Biden's been one of the most moderate Republicans you've ever seen for the last 30 years. And now I just think the inmates are running he's the warden, but I think he's, just locked in his office basically. So we'll see what happens with that. I'll wait to see kind of where that goes. But let's do this because these are not in order anymore. So let's take a look, sort these out. All right. And so the ones we had down on Signet, which is fine. We're just murdering with Signet anyway. Nikola, which kind of goes up and down. PBF, which is an oil stock. And then RDI, which is a cinema stock. So I'm like, all right, well, we talked a lot about cinema stocks. So I was like, that might be one to look at. All right, so kind of pocket that one for a little bit. And then we go to 2 days. And let's sort this one out again. All right, so RDI, again, down 16%, so we're definitely going to do something with that. We'll talk about that in a moment. Vine Therapeutics, that's just pullback from their really good days. It's a biotech company, so I'm not going to, it's not our expertise here. Blink Charging's doing, has been doing really well, but had a little bit of a pullback. We're still up 122% on that. Ellis Gaming, down 10%, still doing pretty good on that. Hall of Fame Resorts, that one's one we just bought for $220 a share, dropped down to $220, like $215, and immediately went up. So that was a beautiful price point as well. But we're looking at an upside. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's pretty high. So we're going to make a note of RDI and HOV or Hall of Fame resorts. IVR went down 7%, and we've kind of stayed away from them for a while, but this one has an upside of 4.63, so we'll talk about them in a little bit. XAN is a commercial REIT. I'm not ready to get back into that yet, so we'll take a look at that. So looking at the upside overall, AHT is still number 2, but it's kind of moving in the right direction. This one's going to drop pretty well. Where are we at for holdings with that, by the way? Okay, well, I might consider doing that. We'll take a look here. So we might consider AHT. IVR is at 4.63. Hall of Fame's at 4.49. Akagi, PBF. Akagi's doing pretty well. PBF's doing pretty well. All right, so we took a look at that, and I just put together a short list of stocks that I may want to, and I'll put AHT in here as well, that I may want to put a buy in. So we just did Hall of Fame Resorts. That was right here, 220, bought 1,200 shares. It's already up 8%. Nice price point. Yes. I think we're going to do it again. I really like this stock. I think it has a lot of upward potential. So we'll put another 220 in right now. It's sitting at 237. So if we get down to 220 again, we'll clear that one as well. IVR, I want to be a little bit pickier on. So it's at 394 right now. Unless it drops down, if it drops down to 350, then that's fine. We'll put in a buy, put in about 2,500, has a good upside on it, but it hasn't really varied a lot. So even if it doesn't perform the way we want to, it's still meandering around, been meandering around even. So, but I was actually watching a thing where they talked about one of Biden's decisions. I don't know if it's an executive order, or it was just legislative planning, is that they wanted to keep throwing more money at the REITs out there. So with that being said, this is a company that is right in line for those. So we definitely want to see if we can place ourselves in there. We don't have to buy it, but if the price point's right, we'll buy it. RDI, that's Reading International. That's our movie theater company. It's at 615. This one I actually put in at 610, and it's already started to fill a little bit. So it's not a really big upside, but that I just think with the movie industry, like we talked about yesterday, I don't think this upside is going to be a completely accurate metric that we look at. So I think there's a lot more upside to that. And then Golden Entertainment, that's a casino. And I was thinking about them mainly because our casino sector's done really well. And sports betting just got approved in Michigan and a couple other states. And I think it's going to be nationwide pretty soon. They said the Super Bowl is going to be the biggest online betting event in our history, which, duh. I mean, it's every year it's going to be bigger than the year before for the most part. But Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes are definitely going to place in that. So if it gets down to 17, we don't have to buy it, but if it gets down to $17, which is kind of the lowest point that it really hit before it bounced back up in the last probably month or so, then we'll put a buy in for that. So overall, we got about 10 grand of the 20 that we have available. And yeah, if it goes through, that would be great. All right, so with that being said, we'll take a look at our projections. So we are projected to be at about 331, mainly because we just cashed in our gain and we're looking to reinvest that money. It's pretty much simple as that. But things are going really well. We'll take a look at our holdings. All right, we've more than doubled what we've done before. Even with this is even with selling the AMC stock that we have here, and then we're at 282%. So we've more than tripled our money. We're almost at a point where we're going to quadruple our initial investment. And then, and this is a crazy thing, I redid the cost basis for AMC once I sold the stock that I had. And our cost basis for AMC is now actually lower because the initial stock, it's first in, first out. So if you sell a stock on day 1 or buy a stock on day 1, 2, and 3, and you sell a stock on day 4, you sell the stock that you bought on day 1. And so I basically redid the cost basis on that. So the cost basis for what I sold it for was about $3.98, sold it for $13, and tripled our money. The only thing that's a bummer about that is this is going to show up on my taxes. So, oh well, $6,000, not a big deal. But it actually lowered our cost basis for AMC. So we're actually at 338% if I sold it right now. But there's no way I'm selling it right now. So we're going to let this one ride a little bit. But overall, things are looking really awesome. The ones in the red, Next ID, we have a limit order for, so we're going to buy more of that if it drops down a little bit further. And then the other ones are just barely $29 and $30 in the red. I mean, And then the other thing that I haven't, I realized I didn't really do this yet. I want to take a look at Norwegian Cruise Line. So I was looking at that before and I just didn't put anything in. So Norwegian Cruise Line is at a double. Basically, it's slated to double from 24 to 28, where it was last year around this time. And the cruise industry is gonna do really well. So I'm gonna keep that there. We'll just ponder doing another order on that. But for right now, that might be something that we look at. We do have an order to sell Carnival Cruise if it hits 25. But the difference between these two, it's $5. I may not even get there. So let's take a look at Carnival Cruise. Yeah, it's at 20, bought it at 20. Yeah, if it gets up to 25, and I might even cancel this sell order, to be honest. So, all right, so with that being said, a couple other things. One thing I just wanted to do in the interest of humor, I think people are trying to like play Name That Tune or like bid people up. Because right now there's a doctor right now. It was 1 mask, and then it was recently, oh, you should wear 2 masks. And then this past week, somebody said, oh, you should wear 3 masks. Now there's doctors right now that are saying wear 4 masks. Now, that sounds really good, except for one thing. They say the rationale is that if 1 mask gets you, let's just make up a number because it's not the real number, 50% efficacy on filtering stuff out, right? And then 2 masks is at 70%, and 3 masks is at 85%, and 4 masks is at 94%. That's great. But you're also starting to filter in oxygen. And anybody I did physical therapy with an N95 mask, and I felt like I was working out on Mars. Because what happened is you end up like the oxygen doesn't go through as well enough because it gets trapped, and then you start rebreathing in carbon dioxide. And if you've ever watched Apollo 13, you understand when you start rebreathing in carbon dioxide, you get loopy. It lowers your immune system, which ironically is a really stupid thing to do if you're trying to like not get infected by a virus. And it brings on cognitive difficulties, which is probably why the guy said 4 masks. If now that you think about it, he's probably wearing 3 masks. He probably can't breathe. There's no oxygen. He's rebreathing in his carbon dioxide, and his thinking's getting all hazy. And he says, oh, if 3 masks is good, well, maybe 4 masks is better. And it's kind of like that movie Something About Mary, where they're talking about 8-minute abs and then 7-minute abs and then 6-minute abs. And finally, they're like, you can't even break a sweat in that amount of time. So I'm just waiting for the guy, we'll see if it happens, where he says 5 masks. So we'll see what happens with that. So pre-market, we're looking a little bit down so far. We'll see how this plays out. This has been going up and down and up and down. I mean, if we look at the volatility for the last week, it's just been, this is where we've been for the last week. And then this last couple days has just been nuts. So I don't really put a whole lot of weight into this right now, but we'll keep an eye on that as we go, and then we'll talk about COVID another time. But you know, so far like nothing's really changed for the most part. Might cover it tomorrow, but anyway, hope you enjoyed that, guys, today. Make sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that already, and make sure to share it too. I never really talk about that, but share it with your friends, especially yesterday's one. I think would be really good if you're going to share anything with your friends. Yesterday's, I think, a really good one. I said it was the best video I ever made, so honestly, if you're going to share anything, that would be the one I would recommend doing. So with that being said, I'll see you mañana.
To get more information on the sales cheat code, go ahead and click on the subscribe button below. Also, down below in the video description, you know, down there, there's a link that takes you to our website that gives you additional content, some additional freebies that we have, and gives you information on some programs that we have that have been proven to help people to make sales easy so that you can make the kind of money you want, live the lifestyle that you've always wanted, and not have to struggle in the process. And what might be the coolest thing of all is you don't have to put much effort into it. It truly is a cheat code that most people don't know about. And it's a cheat code that can change your life today. So click on the link below and let me help you start to experience these results starting right now.